Hey, well, tonight I'm angry about the speech that Justice Sam Alito gave last Thursday to the Federalist Society. And if you haven't heard, it's caused a great deal of controversy. Let's take a look at what he said and whether it should be controversial or not. First of all, let's take a look at some of the reactions that the speech has garnered. Let's start with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who writes, "Supreme Court justices aren't supposed to be political hacks. This right-wing speech is nakedly partisan. My bill to end corruption now restores some integrity to our court by forcing justices to follow the ethics rules other federal justices follow." Here's another hysterical description of the speech given by Sam Alito. This is Slate magazine. Sam Alito delivers grievance-laden, ultra-partisan speech to the Federalist Society. The justice railed against COVID restrictions, same-sex marriage, abortion, and the alleged persecution of conservatives. That sounds terrible. Based on that headline, I don't think I'm in favor of Judge Alito myself. But let's take a look at what he actually said and what people are actually getting upset about. And I think you'll find that his position is quite reasonable. First of all, when you look at what the Federalist Society is, these are their stated goals. Purpose: it is founded on the principles that the state exists to preserve freedom, that the separation of governmental powers is central to our Constitution, and that it is emphatically the province and duty of the judiciary to say what the law is, not what it should be. Now we're starting to get somewhere. We're starting to see why people who want government to be more activist and courts to be more activist, why they are against Sam Alito and his insistence on our individual freedom at the expense of the state's power. What else did Sam Alito say? First of all, he addressed the issue of these COVID-19 lockdowns. And I'm going to read what he said very quickly. Think of all the live events that would otherwise be protected by the right to freedom of speech. Live speech, conferences, lectures, meetings. Think of worship services. Churches closed on Easter Sunday, synagogues closed for Passover on Yom Kippur. Think about access to the courts or the constitutional right to a speedy trial. Trials in federal courts have virtually disappeared in many places. Who could have imagined that? The COVID crisis has served as a sort of constitutional stress test, and in doing so, it has highlighted disturbing trends that were already present before the virus struck. I mean, this sounds like the guy is representing us, not the state. I can't understand why liberals all of a sudden are so in favor of the state. They never used to be. They used to be more suspicious of the state than the conservatives. The conservatives were on the side of the state, and the liberals distrusted the state. Things seem to have completely reversed. How that is, why that is, who knows? We are concerned about the governors and their naked grab for power. When we allowed or thought it was reasonable that martial law could be declared, we imagined that only in the state of a severe asteroid strike, earthquake, some other huge calamity would the governors have the ability to seize these powers. It turns out they can seize them on their whim. And not only can they seize these powers, they can excuse themselves from having to obey the very laws that they demand we obey. Let's keep going. What else did Alito complain about? I quote, "Laws giving an official so much discretion can of course be abused," the justice said, "and whenever one may think about the COVID restrictions, we surely don't want them to become a recurring feature after the pandemic has passed. All sorts of things can be called an emergency or disaster of major proportions. Simply slapping on that label cannot provide the ground for abrogating our most fundamental rights. And whenever fundamental rights are restricted, the Supreme Court and other courts cannot close their eyes. What possible problem can anybody have with the statement? Don't we want officials' power over us to be limited? Shouldn't it be limited? Aren't we the land of the free? I mean, get with the program, people, the land of the free. Not the land of the powerful government, the land of the free. Why are we so against people who advocate for individual freedom? Here's another comment Alito made. Every year, administrative agencies acting under broad delegations of authority churn out huge volumes of regulations that dwarf the statutes enacted by the people's elected representatives. And what have we seen in the pandemic? Sweeping restrictions imposed for the most part under statutes that confer enormous executive discretion. Sam Alito is looking out for us. Sam Alito is trying to limit government's power, and Sam Alito is trying to maintain our freedom. Why are people so against him? Why is Elizabeth Warren claiming that these are such drastic statements that Alito has made? Why is Slate using such a slanted headline to make it seem as if Alito is way off the reservation? These seem to be very sober, serious comments by Alito. I fully support Alito in his ability to muse on the constitutionality of events that are transpiring around him. He is a Supreme Court justice after all, and his opinion on the constitutionality of things is why he is in that role. I certainly respect him for being in that role, and I'm certainly glad that someone who respects our freedoms is in that role. Let's all please wake up.